Hi everybody, and today we're going to be talking about some of the changes to the design standards, and this is relative to the fiscal year 2012-2013 booklet. We're going to be going over the new design standards process, the changes to the design standards themselves, some of the roadway standards, some of the rest will be presented tomorrow. This also includes landscape, ITS, and the planning standards. We'll also be going over the design standards revisions. What are they? Where can you find them? And when to expect them? And how do you use them? We'll also go over a little bit about the new design website and how to use it, what's there and what's not there. As far as our new process, the design standard is now an annual book, and it's based on the Florida's fiscal year, which is why we call it the 2012-2013 booklet. It is now only available online. Printed copies are no longer available through our Maps and Publications office. And we'll go over how to use our website a little bit more that helps with the printing of some of the areas where you might use the most. These are the design standards that have been deleted. Indexes 100, 101, 102, 103, and 106. For these indexes, you need to be looking at the Florida Erosion and Sediment Control Manual now. They are no longer design standards. Some of the others were Index 417, Index 490, Index 520, which has been moved into Index 6011, and also Index 17749 has moved to the Developmental Design Standards, and I'll also show you how to find that. We're going to start with Index 302, Sheet 2. Since Index 490 was deleted, we added the detail for the skewed bridge deck to this index so that you still have that detail, but now it's located in Index 302, Sheet 2. Next is Index 304. We deleted the 2-foot level landing requirement throughout the index. Ramp widths may be reduced to 3-foot minimum in restricted conditions when approved by the engineer is no longer an option. A 4-foot minimum width must be maintained. Index 307. Under the pavement removal and replacement, we have added that your thickness and pavement type must be in accordance with current FDOT asphalt mix specifications. Index 310. Again, you have to maintain the 4-foot width on your sidewalks, and we also added a 1-foot offset from the back of curb so that you can get rid of the little triangle piece that breaks off really easy. Now I'm going to move it over to John Mothner, and he's going to walk you through some of the other ones, starting with Index 400.
Thank you, Rebecca. My name is John Mothner. I'm the Design Standards Manager here in Tallahassee, and I'm going to be going over quite a few of the changes that we've done to our design standards. The first thing that I'd like to go over is I'll start with Index 400. In Index 400, we're going to look at Note 4. And Note 4 concerns a clarification on guardrail mounting height tolerances. One of the things that we've had is an ongoing point of discussion between the construction inspectors and the contractors. Currently, guardrail height is being researched by Florida International University for the Design Standards Office, and research is slated to be completed at the end of the fiscal year, and it should be done somewhere around June 30th of 2012. Based on the results of that study, our office is going to make recommendation on potential changes to the Design Standard Index 400 series. This note Guardrail mounting height for W-beam without rub rail and for Thri-beam is 1 foot 9 inches to the center of the beam. And for W-beam with rub rail, it's 2 foot to the center of the beam. Modified Thri-beam will be mounted at a height of 2 foot to the center of the beam. The height is critical and shall be attained in all cases, and this is the part that we're looking at because a lot of the contractors having issues with the height is critical and shall be attained in all cases. So we're looking at that variation in the tolerance. The next thing is tolerance of 3 inches above and 1 inch below the standard mounting height is permissible, and this is only over necessary surface irregularities across shoulder gutters, for example, in inlets and roadway surface break lines. For guardrails placed on slopes beyond the shoulder point, there shall be no deviation of more than 1 inch below to 3 inches above the desired height within any 25-foot section of guardrail. Index 400, Sheet 1, Note 6. This note is updated to reflect new AASHTO MASH requirements for crash testing. The existing approved proprietary end anchorage systems are identified on the qualified products list. After January 1 of 2011, all manufacturers who seek approval of new proprietary end anchorage systems for inclusion on the QPL must submit an application along with design documentation showing the end anchorage system is crash tested to test level 3 criteria in accordance with MASH, is accepted by the Federal Highway for use as a guardrail and anchorage system, and is compatible with the FDOT guardrail systems. System approvals will be contingent upon FDOT's evaluation of crash test performance results for consistency within FDOT guardrail application and use. If it's approved, the installation drawings need to be signed and sealed by a Florida registered professional engineer. Index 400, Sheet 1, Note 7. There was an English to metric and then metric back to English conversion that caused a little bit of an error, and then that was updated. It was for offsets from Thri-beam with a post spacing of 6'3", and it now reads 3 foot 4 inches rather than 3 foot 3 inches. This is more to clarify the changes. At above ground rigid hazards, where the face of guardrail is offset from the hazard less than the 4 foot minimum for standard W-beam, other guardrail configurations with reduced post spacing may be applicable. See General Note number 11 and the minimum offset table on Sheet 19. The change that I talked about is the table on Sheet 19. For guardrail with post spacing less than 6'3", the reduced spacing should extend a minimum of 1 panel in advance of the hazard. When minimum offsets cannot be attained, a safety-shaped concrete barrier wall shall be used unless other shielding is approved by the engineer of record. See Index 410 for safety-shaped concrete barrier walls and typical applications, and the plans for special barrier shapes and applications. Next thing we're going to look at is Index 400, Sheet 1, Note 16. The changes to Note 16 are to clarify the permissible combinations of post and offset block types, while the modifications to Note 16B clarify the use of plastic offset blocks within an anchorage assembly and guardrail transitions. The issue that came up here was that a contractor wanted to install the plastic offset blocks in one of the end anchorage assemblies, and according to the crash test criteria, those end anchorage assemblies were not crash tested with plastic offset blocks, so they were not allowed to put them in there. And had they gone to the QPL, they would have seen that there's actually a limitation use note on the QPL that tells them that they're not allowed to put those blocks in the end anchorage portion. So according to Note 16, steel offset blocks other than modified Thri-beam offset blocks are not permitted for new guardrail construction, and then the existing steel offset blocks may remain throughout the service life of the existing guardrail. Permissible post and offset block combinations are tabulated on Sheet 16. Plastic block offset block installation shall be constructed on guardrail outside of approach end anchorage assemblies or any transition system connecting to a rigid or Thri-beam barrier. Keep in mind we do have transition sections that go to bridges and also to concrete barrier wall from the guardrail. Next thing I'd like to talk about is the design standards revisions. What are design standards revisions? Design standards revisions are the revisions to the design standards that happen between the regularly scheduled releases. Excuse me. When do you expect them? They're going to be on an as-needed basis to affect changes of immediate concern with implementation via design bulletin. And actually, we currently have revision R1301 that's out there, and I'm going to talk about that one a little bit later. And then how do you incorporate them into your plans? It's by including a reference on the contract plans lead key sheet. This is the Roadway Design Bulletin 12-06, and it references the Design Standards Revision R1301. R1301, the Design Standards Revisions to the fiscal year 2012-2013 Design Standards e-booklet. Effective date will be July 1 of 2012. They've been posted on the Roadway Design Office website. The Design Standards Revisions include a listing of all revisions incorporated into the effective design standards. When applicable, all plans beginning with the July 1 letting shall include a reference to the applicable design standards revisions. The date is 07-01-12. They'll be on the lower left corner of the key sheet below the governing specifications and standards note and above the revisions area. For more information on this, you can look at the Exhibit KS1 that's published in the Plans Preparation Manual, Volume 2, Section 3.8. This is going to be key here because I had given some information out to, I believe, District 2 and District 1 and asked them to ensure that it was going to show up on all of the plans for that are incorporated for the fiscal year 2012-13. But I've since talked to David O'Hagan, and he only wants these on the projects where the actual revision affects the project. So if you're affected by any of the revisions to Index 400, to Index 414, and to Index 619, then you'll include the date on there. Otherwise, you'll just leave the date blank as without the date in there. Design Standards Revision R1301. Index 400, there are sheets 13, 17, 18, 22, and 26 are affected by the changes. On sheet 13, the guardrail transition cost note was deleted from the elevation view detail, and this was based on specification 536 revisions that we made to the method of measurement and to the basis of estimates for the payment. This is the sheet, and the detail is up here in the corner. As you can see, the note is no longer there. Above it, it says see index number 420. In that area is where we included the previous cost note. One of the things that keeps coming up on sheet 13, I get a lot of calls from different designers who are trying to estimate and tabulate the guardrail at this location. And as you can see, there's Thri-beam, that you have a 25-foot Thri-beam panel, you have a 12.5-foot Thri-beam panel, and then you also have 12.5-foot nested Thri-beam panels, as well as a 6'3" W Thri-beam transition section. The entire length that's calculated is going to be the length where it attaches to the bridge traffic railing barrier and measures all the way to your end anchorage at the end of the guardrail. The entire length is one length, and it's summed from that begin station to the end station, and it's all included in the cost of the parent guardrail. And in this case, the parent guardrail is the standard W-beam guardrail. So all of that guardrail is calculated as W-beam. There's no differentiation between the Thri-beam and the nested beam and the 6'3" W to Thri-beam connection. We've gotten a lot of calls on that, and it's been confusing for some of the I think it's some of the newer designers, so the older designers pretty much know this has been standard practice for quite a while. On sheet 17, in reviewing payment for bridge anchorage assemblies, the LESS committee reviewed the breakout of the cost for pedestrian safety treatment pipe rail, and this request was based on additional cost that was borne by the contractor to install pipe rail in areas where the CEI would demand such based on the offset criteria for a 4-foot clearance of sidewalks behind the guardrail. Since the pay item for pipe rail was not included and available, supplemental agreements would ensue, and either the guardrail pay item would be overrun or the contractor would eat the cost and lose money on the project. And then more often than not, it was the contractor was actually losing money on our projects. According to the revision on sheet 17, we revised the note 1 to better clarify the criteria associated with implementing pedestrian safety treatments. So we deleted the cost information on note 3. And this is sheet 17 here. The area that I'm talking about is down here where the notes are. And the note 1 now reads, pipe rail is required on steel guardrail posts when the front of pedestrian ways and bikeways are located 4 foot or less from behind the back of the post. Pipe rail shall not extend beyond the last post of the approach end anchorage assembly. Begin and end the pipe rail in accordance with the pipe rail end fixture detail. This note had to be clarified. There were so many different interpretations of what was going on and when do you include it, when do you not include it. And the best example that I can give was there was a sidewalk that was actually in front of the guardrail, and the back of the sidewalk was a couple of feet away from the back of the guardrail that had steel posts, and they put pipe rail back at the back of the guardrail, which had no effect for the pedestrian on the sidewalk. So the key here is the pipe rail is required on steel when it's behind. So that the intent there is to protect the pedestrian from the actual steel. On note 2, when guardrail with timber posts are located with the back of the post 4 foot or less from the near front edge of the pedestrian or bikeway, the bolt ends will require one of the following end treatments. Then you trim the bolt back flush with the face of the nut, and then you metalize it, or you use post bolts with 15-inch in length and washers and nuts that are countersunk, and you sink it into an inch and a half deep, or you can use the post bolts that are 15 inches in length with sleeve nuts and washers. On sheet 18, we revised the C note 1 to C pedestrian safety treatments on the plan view detail. We deleted note 1, we renamed note 2 to note 1, and then also renamed note 3 to note 2. We also revised the verbiage of the renumbered note 2 for clarity, and then we deleted some dimensions that were based on proprietary products for section BB and section CC. This is sheet 18. These are the notes that we're talking about. And this is a note, curb and gutter flare section shall follow guardrail flare. See elsewhere in this index for additional guardrail flare information. And then note 2, for specific details, offset requirements, and end treatments of proprietary end anchorage assembly, flared systems, see the qualified products list. This was key, getting them to go back to the actual QPL so that they could get their information and their dimensions from the QPL list. The next sheet we're going to look at is sheet 22. We revised the Class 1 concrete label to read Class NS. Class NS stands for non-structural, and this was done on one of the section details. And this is up in the upper right-hand corner. This is the post mounted in concrete. And as you can see, the Class NS concrete, and then you do not add steel reinforcement. On sheet 26, the last sentence from note 1 of the lateral placement on slopes, the table contained cost and payment information, and at the request of the specifications office, the last sentence was deleted. This is sheet 26. The note that we're talking about is up in the right-hand corner, and it was deleted from the bottom of note 1. This note, pretty much all three of these notes read the same as they were before, except down in this section down here, this is where the note was deleted for the payment. Next thing we're going to look at is a summary of guardrail form. The form itself has been revised. We revised this based on the design standards revision that came out several months ago. And this is the new form. The first section I'm going to talk about is the bridge anchorage assemblies, each for new construction or retrofit. And that's this section here. We added the column in for the bridge anchorage assembly each, and then it says new construction or retrofit. Previously, contractors were being paid for retrofitting guardrail onto existing bridges, but then when new bridges were being constructed, the actual connection for the bridge anchorage assembly, that actual assembly of that connection, was included in the cost of the structure. And based on discussion with FTBA and the LIST committee, they had requested that we now pay for all this separately, and it just made sense because they were actually doing the work, but they weren't getting paid. And in many times the bridge contractor was not the same contractor that was actually doing the work on the guardrail. The next segment that we're going to look at the pedestrian safety treatment and the rub rail section of the form. And you can see we added a station location with from and to and aside. And then the next thing we'll have is pedestrian safety treatment column for the pipe rail in linear feet. And then the next column is the roadway rub rail column, and that's calculated in linear feet, and that's also single and double face. One of the things that we talked about when we reviewed this with the estimates office, there are some cases where you'll have double rail on the front and the back, and then you also have the single rub rail, and they wanted to tabulate that separately. So if you have a run of rub rail and it runs along your project and it starts out on a single side where it's only located on one side, wherever it transitions and you have double, you have to stop your station and then start a new station for the double and tabulate that double separately. And again, you'll see that when you go to the actual pay item, there's a change in the last number that shows you whether it's single or double. Predominantly, you're going to be calculating single, but occasionally you will have some double rub rail on your project. The next thing I'm going to go over is the specification 536, the method of measurement changes. This is where, when you're looking at this, you really need to go back to the specifications to see exactly how things have changed as far as measuring and paying. For 536-6.4 on the bridge anchorage assemblies, the quantity to be paid will be the number of each constructed in place. Same thing for 536-6.5 guardrail anchorage to concrete barrier wall. This is the actual anchorage of the guardrail to the barrier wall, so we made sure we included this as well as the connection to the bridge. And again, you're paying for that for the number of each constructed in place and accepted. On under other rail, we created a new section of 536-6.9.1 for rub rail. The quantity there is to be paid for planned quantity in feet constructed in place and accepted. And then pipe rail is 536-6.9.2, and that quantity, the same thing, planned quantity in feet constructed in place and accepted. Specification 536-7 for the basis of payment. Again, one of the efforts that we're trying to make when we go through and make changes to our design standards, we're going to be removing as much of the payment information from the design standards and incorporating that into the specification change. So you will see the trend of payment information coming out of the standards and moving into the specs. Under 536-7.4, the bridge anchorage assemblies, the price and payment will include furnishing and installing special end shoes, wood blocks, or retrofit wing posts, concrete anchor posts, thrive beam terminal connectors, backup plates, filler plates, and any other necessary hardware for the bridge anchorage assembly connection. Under 536-7.5, the guardrail anchorage to concrete barrier wall, the price and payment here will include installing connections to concrete barrier walls as shown in the design standards index 400 and index 410. Under specification 536-7 for the basis of pavement, under other rail, 536-7.9.1 for rub rail, The price and payment will include all components specified on the plans and Design Standard Index 400. And again, same thing for the pipe rail. 536-7.9.2, price and payment will include all components specified on the plans and the design standards in Index 400. Under the basis of payment for 536-7-7.10 payment items, the item 536-5, the rub rail per linear foot, was added. The item 536-6 pipe rail per foot was added. And then 536-8 bridge anchorage assemblies is the same, only now you will incorporate the cost of new bridge construction attachments. Under 536-82 guardrail anchorage concrete barrier walls each, that was also modified so that it was clear that that payment was made separately as well. On the basis of estimates on pay items, 536-5-A, this is the guardrail rub rail for type A. This is where if you have single-sided, you'll code 1, and if you have calculations where you have double-sided, you'll code a 2. So your project typically will have the 1, and if it has the 1, it will have the 2 if there's a 2 in the project. I doubt seriously you would have a 2 without the 1. The single-sided is more dominant. Under 536-6, guardrail, pipe, rail, linear feet. Then you have 536-8 for bridge anchorage assembly. Those are per each. And then 536-82, guardrail, anchorage, concrete barrier wall. Those are also per each item. Next thing we're going to look at is Index 403, Sheet 3. There was a change to the concrete class to non-structural. That's down here in the notes section. And then concrete for transition blocks shall be class NS. We also changed the payment for the transition block to concrete curb special linear feet. Thank you. Down there in the right-hand corner. The next thing we're going to look at is Index 410, Sheet 1. We updated the Note 4 and updated the compaction specification from AASHTO T99. And here, I guess we're looking at this detail to see that the reflective barrier marker is 1 foot from the end of the top of the barrier wall. This was a new change. I believe before it was, I don't even know that it was designated. I think we had to actually determine that and then include that as part of the new standard. And then in Index 411, Sheet 1, the notes that were revised here are Notes 3 and Note 7. And these notes were revised to match the updated notes from Index 410. Under Note 3, it says when the pier protection barrier is installed adjacent to roadway or shoulder pavement, compact the top 12 inches of the subgrade to at least 98% of the maximum density determined by FM 1-T180 Method D. This is the standard department's method and was different than, it's the same as the AASHTO designation, but they just weren't used to seeing it this way. So now we've provided the correct verbiage. Under Note 7, this is a new note that was added, and this has to do with preventing or trying to reduce the amount of cracks during construction. And the contractor needs to provide 3/8 inch deep crack control V grooves at 15 feet to 30 foot spacing, and locate the V grooves above any joint or discontinuity in the barrier footing. Align the V groove perpendicular to the longitudinal axis of the pier protection barrier, and then make continuous across the top surface and both side faces. For slip form barriers, score 3/8 inch V grooves while the concrete is still plastic. Otherwise, preform the joints when stationary forms are utilized. Index 430 was removed from the fiscal year 2012-13 booklet. There is some ongoing research right now as far as the effectiveness of some of the speeds related to the design of crash cushions, and we're going to have a little bit more information as that comes out. So Index 430 was removed from the design standards due to issues concerning the selection of crash cushions. There is ongoing research and then the development of the crash cushion categorization, which will impact the selection of crash cushions. I'm working on the categorization along with Frank Sullivan, and we're looking to hopefully have something done somewhere around mid-summer, around the mid-year, and then we might have everything ready and available for the next release of the design standards. So the future action on this is still to be determined, but that's our plan as of right now. And again, if you need guidance for Index 430, since it's no longer in the design standards and you need to select crash cushions, you can see the Basis of Estimates website. They've done a pretty good job of going in there and trying to outline how to actually do the selection. And is this a hot link also? Yeah, this should be a hot link. So if you go to where we have the presentation stored and you click on this, this should be able to take you to it.
When they're posted.
And this is the website. This is the crash cushion pay item selection and the estimates bulletin 1110 for crash cushions. So this is where you'll see the information, and just click on the link and then it'll take you there. Under Index 530, the title was changed to Rest Area Pavilion. We also have a new index, Index 591. It's a landscape irrigation sleeve index, and they have several details in here. Detail A is the roadway section with the utility strip, so you can see that this is the utility strip here, and these are the markers, and then there's also a marker on the outside, and these are the conduits or the irrigation sleeves that are provided. We hope to have another new standard coming out soon for the actual irrigation, and that's being worked on currently. We're looking to try to see if we can't get that released soon as well. Detail B is for roadways without utility strips. So again, you can see the sidewalk is adjacent to the back of the curb or gutter, and then you have your actual strip out to the side here, and then you have your concrete marker. These markers are intended here to mark the end so that when they actually come through and install an irrigation system, that they'll be able to locate the ends of the irrigation sleeves and use the pull strings to get the actual irrigation to go through. Detail C is a section view of the irrigation sleeve, and again here it has a coated conductive tape located directly above the sleeve pair, and it is 12 to 18 inches above, so that when they wave their magic wand and try to determine the location, this coated sleeve will help them so that they can actually find the irrigation sleeve itself. Their irrigation sleeve pair is a 4-inch minimum for irrigation pipes, and then 2-inch minimum for the electric control wire. In detail D is a section through the median. It shows where the actual sleeve comes into the drawing, and then actually there's another stainless steel marker here in the center that will locate the end so that when they have to come in and put in sprinkler heads, they'll know where to go ahead and tie that connection to. And at this point, I'm done with my portion of the presentation. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over back to Rebecca, who's going to go ahead and finish our presentation on the updates to the design standards.
Okay, thank you guys for your patience. Go through the rest of this pretty quick. On both Index 870 and 880, we removed the alternate design notes. On Index 17900, Sheet 5, this sheet was revised to reflect current practices on the traffic monitoring sites. So they just tried to update it so that it's more current with what you guys are actually doing out in the field. On Sheet 6, they updated the offsets. It used to say 15-foot minimum, now it's just varies, and also the unit mounting height changed from being 16 to 23 feet to varies. So it gives you guys a lot more flexibility in where you put those cameras. On Sheet 7, The pool box reference has been updated to index 17700, and that's for all pool boxes. We've consolidated that, and so if you have anything you want to do with pool boxes, please refer to that index now. Index 18202, again, this had, the title was changed because it used to refer to pool boxes and oak trench details. So again, refer to 17700 for pool box of all types. And now we're going to go over the Design Standards website because it has been redesigned. A lot to do with the fact that we're only available electronically with our book now. So we'll start with that. This is your home page. This is where you will find your current Design Standards booklet. This is where you will find all of the ones before, the 2010s, the 2008. They're still there. You can still access them. But for the current ones, this will be effective July 1st. This is where you will go to see your new booklet, and this is what it looks like when you come here. What is available here is your complete booklet, and again, this is a very large file. It is completely text readable, and it has bookmarks now, so hopefully it's a lot more user-friendly. But it's also broken down, just as it was before, into the individual indexes. But we also have anywhere that there's a blue link, which is every heading in our table of contents, gives you a mini book of everything under that table of contents. We've also included a lot of the things from structures, trying to get everything consolidated into one-stop shopping for you guys. So we have the instructions for the design standards. We have the data table cell library. We also have borderless DGNs for those that are available. Right now it's just a lot of the structures standards that used to be on their website. We've tried to put them all in one place so it's a lot easier for you guys to find them. If there is a blank in this column, currently there is not a DGN available, but if it is available, it will be listed in this column. If there are data tables, they will be listed in this column. And if there are instructions for design standards, they will be listed in this column. This column is for revisions, and that will be like the R1301. It scrolls down and it's there as well, so you can link to get to it at that place. Or you can get to them from the home page. You click on this link, and that takes you to this website, and this is revision number 1301. That's what the R1301 stands for. These are all of the indexes that were affected by this bulletin, a list of the sheets that were changed, and a brief description of what changed there, the effective date, and also a link to the design bulletin with the effective date and a lot more information on the implementation of these changes. Also, we have added a link to our developmental design standards. And so you would click on this link, and here is the web page where they are stored. And 17749, which was a design standard, has been moved here. And this is your contact person for using this standard. If there are instructions that go along with it, they're listed here. And if there is a developmental spec that goes along with it, this will be a link and you can click to go to the spec section, otherwise it will say no. Also, there has been one other major development. If you go to our main design homepage, and this is the link to it, this is what will come up. We are mobile now. For any of you guys who are out in the field with tablets or iPads or iPhones, you can get to the design standards from a mobile link now out in the field. So that should help you guys who aren't carrying around the books anymore, we hope. And thank you. This is the end of our presentation. I am Rebecca Hatton.
I'm John Maltner. Thank you very much.